I think one of the biggest topics in the last couple of weeks here, which is NBA expansion. Adam Silver and the Board of Governors meeting obviously took place yesterday, Wednesday in New York. Adam Silver spoke later in the day and said that the NBA is officially exploring expansion, and they're looking at Seattle and Las Vegas, probably the front runners. I don't think it's for sure, but I think they are considered the front runners for new teams to be expanded. So we're looking at 32 teams here in the NBA soon, very soon. I think possibly as soon as like 2029, from what I understand. Maybe it's a little bit earlier or later. But Brett, I mean, what do you make of NBA expansion? I mean, it feels like we've been talking about this for so long, and now that almost 2 decades later, that the Sonics, for example, could be coming back.
On Wednesday, they held the Board of Governors meeting in New York in which they approved the vote to begin looking at expansion exclusively to Las Vegas and Seattle. So those would be the two teams, assuming that bids come in and those get approved. Those are the two markets where teams will be added. And we've known that arguably since what, 2021, 2022, that these will be the two markets that when NBA expansion happens, it wasn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when it happens, that these would be the two teams being added. And now we could see this happen, whether it's the 28-29 season, 29-30 season. That's kind of the timeline that we're looking at. It really depends on what these bids, when they come in, what these bids are looking like and who's going to be a part of it, when it gets approved. That will give us a clear timeline on when these teams will be added. But Seattle, Las Vegas, those will be the two teams that will be added to the Western Conference, which means there's going to be a team moving to the East. There's been a lot of speculation whether it's going to be Memphis, Minnesota. Right now, it seems like Minnesota would be the team that would be moving to the East. But again, a lot to go through. The same applies for what these expansion draft rules would potentially look like. The Board of Governors has to approve it. The NBA has to approve it. But first, they're just out there partnering with their bank right now, and they're going to look for official bids coming in, and then those will be approved at a later time by the Board of Governors. Seems to be some mixed reviews based on some reports that are coming out from team owners and team governors about whether or not they truly think that the league should expand. But again, money drives this league. There's a lot of revenue coming in right now. Ratings are at an all-time high. Granted, people don't want to admit that, but NBA ratings have been fantastic this year. Viewership is up for some of these new networks. NBC has reported some of their best numbers, not just for them, but in terms of the league as a whole compared to ESPN and TNT last year. So I think that the league's in a great place. We've seen the talent dilute across the league. And Adam Silver, when he was talking yesterday in his press conference, is very optimistic about the competition level for 32 teams. Granted, tanking has taken over this conversation. And I know we kind of introduced that to Omer about, oh, the Wizards, the Nets, the Kings, just not good teams this year. But there's a difference between rebuilding and tanking. And obviously this year, we'll get into it a little bit later with how talented this NBA draft is. That plays a role in it. There's plenty of talent around the league, even on those teams that are, in quotes, tanking.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing to look at is I think valuations right now. It looks like teams in Seattle and Vegas are going to go for anywhere in that ballpark. I think of 7 billion to 10 billion. I like that we could just throw those numbers around. It's just like a number, but that's just an insane amount of money. And so Seattle has been dying for their franchise back. I think they've kind of OKC when they moved over to Oklahoma City, the Thunder did. I think they started a new history. It's not like they took the Sonics history with them. And I think Seattle is ready to, after 20 years, 20 some years almost, just bring that history back, kick it right back off with the Sonics. We asked Teron Lou about it yesterday, and he immediately was talking about their new arena, and the Clippers have played a couple of preseason games there, and that fan base there is just raucous and honestly just ready for a basketball team again. I don't think they were ever ready for them to leave, and so that will be great to see. I am very curious to see what the Las Vegas team looks like because. I think Vegas, when they got the Golden Knights, when they got the Aces, Vegas, I think, was booming. I don't know if you can say that as much right now. And I am curious with the Oakland A's supposed to move over there, with the, this expansion team now supposed to head over there. I'm very curious what that kind of market, that sports fan base, looks like. Obviously, again, the Aces and Knights, Golden Knights have a very strong fan base, but I'm very curious to see if people turn out for, the NBA team out there. We've seen Summer League be hosted out there. We've seen the NBA Cup be hosted out there a couple of years. So there's been some good turnouts and some struggles as well. So I'm very curious to see what happens there. Brett, do you? I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but I mean, not all the NBA owners, I believe, are 100% on board with expansion. Some feel like the league has enough problems right now. We obviously have the tanking issues right now. I know we've touched on it a little bit of late. Adam Silver said yesterday, I believe, that there's going to be a fix, full stop to end tanking. And seeing a bunch of different anti-tanking scenarios. I'm just wondering if do you have anything of your own that you can maybe think that might work and entice teams to just not throw in the towel in February or January.
Well, I do know, and I can confirm that there's been several scenarios discussed at these meetings already for the tanking scenarios of what are the rule changes going to be? Are they going to limit teams being able to pick inside the top three, top four in back-to-back years? That's something that I've heard has gained a little bit of momentum. That's something that could possibly change as soon as May. That's when there's going to be this meeting being held when there will be firm rules in place for the 26-27 season in terms of tanking. The owners, the governors, and the league office are continuing to come up with ideas and pitch them to the league as a whole. And we will see some changes. It's not just going to be one thing where they're not going to allow teams to pick first in back-to-back years. There's going to be a few things that roll out here, and especially in terms of protections. I've heard that pick protections are going to be a topic of conversation that are going to be changed. You're not going to be able to just protect it in just any range that you want anymore. It's going to be very firm stipulations on those to try to prevent teams from throwing games late in the season and tanking or whatnot. So we're going to see some rule changes here roll out within the next 2 months. And obviously before the NBA finals, we're going to have a clearer picture painted on all that. Aside from tanking and expansion, the other big thing that happened this past week in the NBA is the salary cap is increasing for the 26-27 season. I think that there's a common misconception out there for NBA fans right now. They think that it's decreasing by $1 million. That is not true. The NBA salary cap is actually increasing by $11 million. It's going to 165 million. I believe this year was at 154, right below 155. And so all those other cap figures are increasing as well. Luxury tax going up by 13 million. First apron, 13 million. Second apron, just about 14 million. So there is more of a buffer for teams to operate, and the revenue coming in is going up. It's not going down. The league is in a good place, and I just want to clear that up for anybody who has some common misconceptions out there about, oh, the salary cap's going down by 1 million. It's just the projection is down by 1 million. Is that a little bit of a concern from a business model? Maybe, but honestly, it just has to deal with those regional sports network shutdowns. And when YouTube TV comes in or when Amazon picks them up, everything will kind of flatten out and it will go back to the normal.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the. I mean, you've had some conversations with people on social media about that, so I know you've been waiting to dive into that one. Yeah, I'm very curious to see how all this pans out because we have so much kind of going on here with, the cap rising. We have expansion within the NBA. We've heard about the FIBA League being kicked off soon. There are teams internationally in London and Paris that are getting ready to make bids to the NBA for why they should be the teams in this FIBA NBA league. So very excited to see what happens here. I feel like there's just so much going on. And one thing we haven't touched on, I mean, you touched on it briefly, but what are the expansion draft rules going to look like? How many players can you protect? I think that's just going to be such an interesting thing to look at, considering there's a lot of talent in the NBA. Some teams, have a lot of talent they probably don't want to give up, and they might be forced to with this expansion draft. With an expansion, you in the short term, you do see less money because you're splitting. The ref split goes from 30 teams to 32 teams, so more teams get that money. But over a long period of time, you will see that return. So a couple of things that I am very interested to see what the NBA and the owners and kind of decide to do here. Before making it official. Moving on to a very, very interesting quote from Victor Wembanyama. Wemby the other day against the, I forgot who they beat, but was asked about his case for MVP. What do you think is his case for MVP? I guess he was having a conversation with, I believe it was the Athletics' Jared Weiss about his MVP case. And Jared asked him on the record if he could share that, and he explained his 3 cases for MVP. I, for one, love that someone is actually saying, I care about this award, as opposed to just throwing it off to the side and pretending like it means nothing. I think when we talk about the history of the league, you mentioned MVPs as probably one of the first accolades you can talk about, aside from like NBA championships. And so I've never understood guys kind of like deflecting. Obviously, the team goal is important, but you should want to win the MVP award. So Wemby listed as 3 things. Brett, I just wanted to get your take on Wemby's comments, Victor Wembanyama's comments the other day, with his take on why he should win MVP. I think he had 3 different bullet points.
Yeah, and I think that his quote in general kind of sums up everything that we've been writing about for Wemby this year. I'm just going to share some tidbits from it. He said that his first criteria is defense is 50% of the game. Absolutely true. And when you look at defense this year, he's a lock for Defensive Player of the Year. Victor Wembanyama, as long as he plays 65 games, will be the Defensive Player of the Year this year. And his metrics are just off the charts. It's way above everybody else. He's a much more elite defender based on advanced metrics on off the floor defensively for his team than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And Shai is a significantly much better defender in those categories compared to Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. So that category right there absolutely leans in favor of Victor Wembanyama. The second one that he mentioned is that they almost swept OKC 5-0 this season. They beat them 4-1, and they beat them in some very big games earlier this year. They beat them in the NBA Cup. We were there for that game. We saw firsthand what this team was looking to be this year, and now we see kind of the finished product near the end of the regular season. Head-to-head absolutely matters. In MVP, it's mattered in previous seasons. So again, a leg up to Wemby there. And then the third argument, he said that offensive impact is not just points. And I think that that's one of the most intriguing things to kind of discuss, because you have to look at the on-off metrics and what that means for a player to impact his team. And then obviously the win shares. And I was diving into the advanced metrics. We just posted a story on Tuesday about this, about Victor Wembanyama and his MVP case, breaking down this 3 criteria that he laid out of what he believes an MVP is in this league. And that third one is really what we dove deep in on the advanced metrics. And the one thing that I want to bring up, Tomer, is the win shares. Victor Wembanyama, when he's on the court, the Spurs are playing like a 72 win team in the NBA. 73, I'm sorry. The 73 win team, which would tie the Golden State Warriors, the 2015-2016 team that went 73-9. And his win share total that he adds to that is plus 31. So when he's not on the court, they play like a 500 level team. When he's on the court, they play like the best team in regular season history, right there with the 2015-2016 Warriors. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, again, he makes a great impact. I believe that they were at 72 wins, so very comparable right there when he's on the court. But the one difference for me is that his win share, again, it's fantastic, but plus 17. So when he's off the court, they're still a 50-win team because of that depth that they have, whether it's Aaron Wiggins, Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, AJ Mitchell. They have guys that can contribute. So to me, the biggest difference in Wemby's argument, I'm not saying the MVP debate as a whole, but in Wemby's argument, he wins that third case as well, because plus 31 compared to plus 17, that's a massive difference for me.
Comparing the two in their cases, you mentioned defense is a big part of that. To make a case for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think one of the fascinating things with him is just, I feel like we've gotten too used to just his level of efficiency scoring the basketball with as much usage in that he has. The ball's always in his hands, and he is just always efficient. I know people want to make the free throw claims, and he shoots a lot of free throws. He's not leading the league in free throw attempts, though. His abilities, if you look at the numbers, don't have them in front of me, but the mid-range numbers from 3 to 10 feet, from 16 to 30 feet, like he is just elite at all the levels in the mid-range, inside the paint. From 3, he's gotten significantly better. So this is a guy who literally has no weaknesses offensively. He's able to get a shot over the bigger defender, over a faster, slower guy. It doesn't matter. He's able to get a shot off against whoever he wants. I think there was a video a couple weeks ago where he had back-to-back, maybe to back game winners with the same side step back. So over 3 different defenders. So like he's a guy who can do whatever he wants. But again, the case here for Wemby, which I agree with, is defensively. He is just a force to be reckoned with. And even if he's not blocking shots, you can watch, like when the Clippers were here, for example, you can watch Darius Garland drive and go, oh, shoot, that guy's kind of big. I'm going to get out of the paint and try to find something else. Or guys try to challenge him and go, wait, I don't think I have the angle, and go away to reset the play or something. So those are things that I don't think you can really track necessarily. There's no advanced metrics for that, but that's a very real impact eventually, where guys just get deterred at the rim and go, let's just try find something else because I'm gonna get my shot swatted. So I think it's a very real impact that we don't even talk about or have the ability to track. So that's a good point there. And then the offensive impact you discussed that Wemby mentioned, as far as not just scoring, the ability to draw double teams, get the hockey assists. I don't think the NBA has a tracker yet for hockey assists, but I feel like that should be something we have at this point because of guys like Steph Curry with the ability to draw doubles, the guys like Victor Wembanyama who can see over a defense, create so much havoc just by the attention they create. I know there's a gravity stat which I think has helped kind of track who has that kind of impact on the perimeter, but I think Wemby definitely has a case for that as well. Just the hockey assist, the ability to draw doubles, see over defenses, create plays out of those. And I definitely think there's a case to be made for him for MVP. And OKC has a tough stretch here. If they do not finish with the number one overall seed in the West, I think I want to say the Spurs are about 2 games back now, 2.5 games back. If the Spurs get the number one overall seed, I don't know how you don't give this to Victor Wembanyama. Just full stop.
I'm with you on that. You kind of stole the words right out of my mouth there. I was going to bring up that there's still time left in this season. I believe they have 9, 10, maybe 11 games left, but 9 or 10 games left. They have the season tiebreaker over the Thunder, and the Thunder have a much harder schedule than the Spurs do. And so if they catch them and Victor Wembanyama continues to put up these 20, 10, and 5 block performances like he's been doing over this last week, and they pass the Thunder, to me, that's going to be the edge. If they can claim the best record in the NBA and the one seed in the West, Victor Wembanyama will be MVP. But as of right now, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Some of those other guys, like we mentioned, Luka Doncic has been unreal this past 2 weeks. I think that's the best 2 week stretch that we've seen from a player since Michael Jordan in the 90s. So right there, that tells you how dominant he has been. And he's put the Lakers firmly in the 3 seed. It seems like that they're going to be clinching that spot very soon. And that's a spot that they desperately needed, because the last thing they want to do is run into a first round series with a team like the Nuggets or the Timberwolves, who are probably going to be 4-5. So I think that you have to give Luka Doncic credit. That's why I moved him up to number 3 on our MVP rankings at ClutchPoints. Nikola Jokic, a fantastic season, but we've seen Denver fall off. Jaylen Brown, fantastic season. But again, it's just very hard to put him in the top pedestal, I guess, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Victor Wembanyama, with how dominant they have been with their teams all season long and how they have led them to being the 2 best records in the league. So for me, that's where the argument really lies right now. And like you said, if Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs pass the Thunder, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how voters kind of turn out for this.
Yeah, I will say 9 games left in the season. The Spurs are 2 games back of the Thunder, and the Thunder have a couple of tough games remaining with, I think, the Lakers a couple times, the Pistons, the Clippers, and I think the Knicks. So not an easy schedule there by any stretch. So and those are all teams that need wins. So I'm very curious to see what happens with that MVP race as far as the standings go. Moving on to some injury reports, injury updates. Obviously, unfortunate news coming out of Golden State with the injury to Moses Moody. Suffered a torn patellar tendon in the Warriors win against the Dallas Mavericks over the weekend, or a couple days ago. A brutal, went up for a dunk in transition, a clean play, and just planted, and it was brutal to watch. I mean, he got stretchered out. Obviously, you could tell the whole building, kind of the air was taken out of the building there, especially from the Warriors bench. They were able to hold on and win the game, but obviously you lose a big piece of your rotation, not only for this season but for next season as well. So before we get into Steph and just the rest of the season and injuries and stuff like that, what's the latest on Moses Moody, his recovery timeline, and when can we kind of expect to see him back, if any time in the near future?
Well, first, Tomer, we want to send our best to Moses Moody. It's brutal looking injury, very gruesome looking injury, and quite honestly, it's one of the worst ones that I've seen firsthand. And so we want to send our best to him, wish him the best in surgery. I thought I heard somebody say it was going to be today. If it wasn't today, it's tomorrow. But he's having surgery, and we'll get a clearer picture on what that recovery process and timeline is going to look like. But a torn patellar tendon, probably the worst knee injury that you could have, other than absolutely tearing everything in your knee. But the good news for Moses Moody is that it's only a torn patellar tendon. Again, a major injury. It's going to be a 9, 10, 11 month recovery. He may not even play next season, and we won't really know until he starts his rehab process and whatnot. But it's a significant injury. The good news, though, it's just a patellar tendon. Nothing else was torn. The ACL is intact. The MCL is intact. All the little ligaments and tendons are intact. And so it's going to be a very smooth surgery. They're just going to go in there, fix the patellar tendon, and then we'll see what that timeline is, that 9 to 12 months recovery time. So we wish Moses Moody the best. Obviously, another devastating knee injury for the Warriors, who are already without Jimmy Butler. They're without Stephen Curry, even though Curry did not have surgery and he didn't tear anything. He's been out since the end of January with that runner's knee in quotes. They keep saying that it's nothing major. And Tomer, the one thing that I think is kind of funny and you can laugh about is they said this is going to be a 1 to 2 week to week type scenario when it first happened. Okay, we go into the All-Star break. We're expecting him to be back on the court after that. That doesn't happen. They say he's had a setback. It's going to be another week or two. we get to that point again for reevaluation. Oh, it's going to be another week or two. We've been through this cycle of, hey, he could be back at the end of the 6 game road trip that they were just on. No, maybe it's going to be during this homestand now against the Nets and the Wizards. Well, we're here now, and Curry's not going to play on Friday against the Wizards. So what are we really doing here if you're the Warriors? What is the point of having Steph Curry come back when you're the 10 seed in the West? You're going to have to win 2 very tough playing games to draw a matchup with the Thunder, who you are not going to beat at this point with Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody down. Al Horford is still hurt. Porzingis could be out of the lineup at any point. Draymond Green has been dealing with his lower back soreness. It's just a lost season at this point, Tomer. And I know Warriors fans want to hold out hope and they want to see Steph back on the court. He wants to get back out on the court. But from an organizational standpoint, you've seen these major injuries happen. Is it really logical to bring Steph back at this point in the season and risk that for really no reward? Your reward would be getting the 8 seed. And at that point, I just don't believe that they would win more than 1 game against the Thunder in a series.
The Warriors are just they're too far down in the standing. They are the 10 seed. They're probably going to finish as the 10 seed. Everyone below them has already been eliminated from playoff or play in contention. It's basically them, the Blazers, and the Clippers trying to fight for who can get the 8th seed and maybe home court in a playing game or a second playing game just to try and make the playoffs. Yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, I think it's very unfortunate. You have just Jimmy Butler injury. You have the Moses Moody injury. Steph is nearing on 2 months now worth of just games missed. I know that we had the All-Star break, so maybe a couple of days off there, but they've been without him for almost 2 months, and that's just ridiculous to think about. So when this is supposed to be a non-serious injury, they've called just runner's knee. So maybe this is something more serious, and maybe they do consider shutting him down. I mean, at this point, I'm not sure what you like. If he's ready to come back, then he's ready to come back, and you are the 10 seed regardless. In this draft, maybe it makes sense for them to just allow them to shut him down. If you lose that playing game, you get a lottery pick, and try to go from there. But yeah, this definitely seems like a lost season for the Warriors. I just had a lot of promise to start once Jimmy went down. I know they even had hopes of landing Giannis Antetokounmpo. That obviously did not happen. And it's just been nothing but downhill from there. And honestly, I mean, Draymond, as great as he's been in the past, he's certainly not what he used to be. You mentioned the lower back soreness he's dealt with. He's on and off. Porzingis could be I mean, thankfully he's healthy now and he looks good when he plays, but that always feels like a mystery for the last couple of years here. Al Horford hasn't been available I think he injured his calf, if I'm not mistaken. He's out for a while here. So just they can't get any lower, but there really doesn't seem to be much upside of even, bringing Steph back unless he's absolutely ready. And even then, can this team really win more than a game against the Thunder? I don't believe so. But maybe, do you think otherwise? Do you think they can win more than a game against the Thunder?
I don't. And the reason I say that, I watched that game last night while watching some of the others that were on against the Brooklyn Nets. It went down to the final possession, Tomer, against a Brooklyn Nets team that has no intention of winning. The Nets actually looked like that they tried to throw that game at the end.
They did.
Just launching the ball up in the air, not even close to the basket, just to try to lose the game because the Warriors they didn't look like that they could win. That was the thing. If the Nets played to their full strength, they probably win that game by 8 to 9 points. And that kind of sums up where the Warriors are at this point in the season. You can see all the emotion and the hype surrounding this team that was there in December and January. At that point, they look like a team that could be a threat. They could rise up to the 4 or 5 seed, maybe draw a favorable matchup and be in a position where they were last year, where they beat the Rockets in the first round. And who knows what happens if Steph doesn't injure his hamstring against the Timberwolves. That's kind of where they were at. Jimmy Butler goes down. They try to rebound from that. Steph goes down. They're trying their hardest to rebound from that. Other guys go out of the lineup, and then you have this very traumatic injury to Moses Moody. That's just the end of the season. It's like the icing on top of the cake for everything that could have gone wrong for the Warriors this year. There's no point to bring Steph back. If he wants to play, I mean, he wants to play, Tomer. He wants to play. I've been told that, and they've been reiterating it multiple times, that Steph wants to come back and play, but they will not rush him back. He has to be 110% for him to play this year. And again, after all these injuries, does it really make sense? The answer is no. Just rest the guys for the rest of the season, see what can happen in the lottery, and go from there, because you're not going to win in the playoffs.
It really just seems like a lost cause at this point. I do want to move on to a couple of guys who I think have been in the news of late for interesting reasons. Probably the same reasons if you ask some of us. Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll start with him. He has wanted to come back from his left. I think it was hyperextension of his knee and bone bruise. He's maintained that he's ready to go. He believes that he's healthy. But the Bucks want to shut him down. That they are out of playoff contention. They are not going to really be doing anything this season, and they don't see a point in potentially risking another injury to their star, who could potentially be available on the market, trade market this summer. And so the Bucks want to shut him down. The NBA Players Association, the NBA Players Association, put out a statement the other day saying they don't agree with this. They want Giannis to be able to play, and now we have kind of a back and forth here. I think Doc Rivers came out the other day before the game and said that they refuted that and that Giannis is not healthy and they wouldn't shut him down if he's available. Before we get to the Josh stuff, I just want to talk about this Giannis stuff. Where do you kind of lie on this? I mean, Giannis maintains that he's healthy. He worked out before every game. He worked out the other day before the Clippers. They're just not playing him.
Brian Windhorst, he brought back his meme the other day, and he said it perfectly of why would the Bucks not want to play Giannis Antetokounmpo? And the answer is not because they want to try to get a higher draft pick or whatnot. It's because they are going to trade him in the offseason. That has become very clear that time is up. Giannis is growing impatient with this franchise. They're now butting heads with one another. It's starting to grow into a toxic relationship there in Milwaukee over the past year. Nothing has gone right. They didn't go out and make a big move at the trade deadline. They have no assets really to do so this offseason unless they land the number one pick, which seems like a long shot. I'm just saying how it is, Tomer. They tried their hardest to do everything they could for Giannis, and you have to give John Horst and the Bucks credit for doing that and going out and looking to see what moves they could make. They tried to make an all-in move last year for Damian Lillard. It didn't work, or 2 years ago for Damian Lillard. It didn't work out. They tried to get Miles Turner. That has not turned out well, and he looks like that's one of the worst contracts in the league now, that he's going to be tied down to the Bucks for years to come. So it's just what it is, Tomer. They're going to wind up trading him in the offseason, even though that they held out hope at this trade deadline that they could do something. They know what suitors are out there. There's going to be even more in the offseason. And quite honestly, they need to shut their mouths on a lot of things that they're saying, because they're just kind of driving down his value a little bit. And I know that that's hard to admit, that Giannis could get even less value than what was out there at the trade deadline. He's one of the best players in the league. He's an MVP candidate every year. But if they continue to do this and Giannis himself requests out, those offers that were there at the trade deadline, they're going to come down a little bit.
I mean, yeah, as expected, all the leverage you had is pretty much gone at that point. So, no, I'm definitely with you on that. I don't understand why they're continuing to do that. If you're going to trade him, just trade him. And it does seem to be a little bit more toxic now than it was maybe a month or 2 months ago. And so, yeah, if you're going to trade him, there's no point in playing him. But what I will say is that I think their one big move in free agency last year, it had to be Miles Turner, and that might have been just the worst possible move because he has not looked good at any point this season. Maybe he's had a couple good games.
It just hasn't been a fit.
Yeah, has not been a fit. And so it's kind of funny looking at it, like, they stole him from Indiana. Well, I think he was expected to resign with Indiana. They stole him from Indiana, and Indiana was in dire need of a center, and they ended up, putting everything on the table for the Clippers to get Ivica Zubac, and now the Clippers could land a lottery. But it's funny how this works, where Miles Turner was never expected to leave, and the kind of the domino effect of that in the league is just amazing to see. But yeah, Miles Turner has not been a fit, unfortunately, and it's a bit of a shame that they kind of used up their free agents. Like you said, they tried, they did what they could. Just didn't work out. It's probably best to move on.
And the thing about the Giannis situation too, he has been your franchise pinnacle for what, a decade now? He led you to a championship for the first time in 50 years. He is one of the best players, not just in your franchise history, in league history. And he's halfway through his career. You owe it to him for him to finish his career, finish his season in Milwaukee, and you owe it to your fans for him to be on the court. So I think what they're doing, obviously from a managerial standpoint, we always say shut down the players. But in this particular instance, when you know that he will not be on your roster to start next year, regardless of what you are saying, give him the benefit of the doubt, put him on the floor, and let him play for those fans.
The other part of this, John Morant with the Memphis Grizzlies, officially shut down for the remainder of the season, the final 9 games, whatever it is for Memphis. He wasn't playing since the All-Star break. I think they said he suffered a UCL sprain in his elbow. and has been just rehabbing that. And their updates every couple of weeks have been, he's progressing, but there's still irritation, there's still discomfort, whatever other buzzword you could use to describe pain or discomfort, and they just haven't played him. John Morant, I know he's been wanting to play, and I think it would have made sense for him to play to at least build up some kind of value. Unlike Giannis, who is a superstar in the league, we already know what his whole thing is, what he's good at, and everything. Ja, I think, definitely has some value to build up in this league, and so especially for teams looking to trade for him, if he's seeking a max contract or a near max contract, like there's things to prove out there if you're John Morant, and the Grizzlies just weren't allowing him to do anything. They're not letting him play. I heard they wouldn't even let him go to a practice one time. So I'm just curious, what is this whole plan with John Morant? Can you see the similarities with the Giannis situation, or is this kind of different to you?
It's very similar, but slightly different, where I can see an outside chance of him returning to Memphis. And I say that just because there was no value at the trade deadline. Teams weren't even willing to give up a second round pick for him. There were talks, I know that you reported on it, we reported on it together at Clutch Points, of the Bucks offer, the Bucks not the offer, but the Grizzlies approaching the Bucks and wanting Ryan Rollins in a trade for John Morant. The Bucks were not having that. So that just goes to show what kind of value John Morant has out there. And that's why we said that he needs to play during the second half of the year to try to increase that value for the trade market. That has not happened. He's out for the rest of the season. We knew that was pretty much going to happen at the trade deadline once he wasn't dealt, that they were just going to shut him down with this elbow injury. Now he enters an offseason that's going to be very interesting. Is there going to be a team out there that has a clear need for a point guard, and instead of going to the draft, they take a chance on John Morant? Could he possibly be a part of a Giannis trade? Could we see these two guys play somewhere together? Because the Bucks had interest in John Morant to pair him with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So could those two guys maybe have interest to go play somewhere else? Who knows? I think that that's a big question to ask entering the offseason, but it certainly seems like that the main option, again, is much like Giannis, where the Grizzlies are going to look to trade John Morant. They're going to look to try to get some value for him, some draft picks. And if that's not there, I could see an outside chance of him returning to Memphis.
Yeah, I think there's definitely interest between Giannis and John playing together, and I also have to mention the fact that they're both Nike athletes, both big name Nike athletes with their own signature shoes now. So that definitely plays a part in it as well, that relationship. So would be curious to see if there's something out there that makes sense for both of them to land in the same team and play together. That would be an interesting partnership. But I just don't know what the Grizzlies are doing essentially with. I mean, I get that they don't want to play John Morant, risk further reducing his trade value, but it's not like you were getting much for him anyways right now at the trade deadline when you tried. You were getting offers similar to Trae Young, even though you said you didn't want to. So I'm not sure what Memphis is doing, but we'll see what they end up having in the offseason. Maybe a team will woo them and surprise them. So we'll see there. I want to move on to an interesting topic that popped up a couple days ago, and I will let Brett discuss this with his reporting, but there's reports that Chicago Bulls head coach Billy Donovan could be stepping away from the Bulls after this season. And Brett, you reported that North Carolina, after moving on from their head coach following their NCAA tournament loss, could be looking at Billy Donovan as their next head coach?
Yeah, that's accurate, Tomer. We reported on it yesterday at Clutch Points. A ton of other outlets have also reported about the situation going on at UNC. They fired Hubert Davis, and they've moved very quickly to put together a list of top candidates for their head coaching position. Brad Stevens, who is the executive for the Boston Celtics, was at the very top of that list. Matt Norlander of CBS Sports has reported that Stevens has immediately turned that down. He has no interest in leaving the Celtics. And when we reached out for comment on it, all we got is that Brad Stevens is committed to the Celtics and he wants to win more championships there in his role as the lead executive in the front office. So I mean, Brad Stevens has come up in job openings before. He came up for Kentucky. He came up for UCLA a while back. He came up now for UNC. If he's not taking those jobs, he is not going back to college. He is very happy where he is. He could have any of the 30 head coaching jobs in the NBA if he wanted. So any job that Brad Stevens wants, if he ever wants a change, he can have it. And that's why there's no rush there to change. And he's not leaving the Celtics. He's staying there in Boston.
I think it's also worth mentioning that he has just destroyed, like he's done a great job with Boston since moving to a front office role. I mean, what they've been able to do there has been fantastic. I mean, the ability to keep Peyton Pritchard, to navigate the second apron that they had to last year, the injury to Jason Tatum, like they've just done a phenomenal job drafting guys like Baylor Shireman and Sam Hauser and the Mias Quedas that started like pulled the Nikola Vucevic trade. He obviously has suffered a fractured finger, but he should be back for the playoffs. He's done a phenomenal job. I would be shocked if he decided to go back to to college. I just don't see that. But going back to Billy Donovan, I'm curious. I mean, the Chicago Bulls, they've been kind of middle of the pack, mediocre, like not bad enough to get a high draft or high lottery pick, but also not good enough to be anywhere near a contender or even like a top 6 team. They've been, feels like the play-in invitational has been Miami, Chicago, and Atlanta the last 4 or 5 years. How much do you think any of that is maybe contributing to the fact that there's UNC rumors there? What do you think? Could he step down because of just how flat these last couple of years have been?
I agree with that. And that's kind of where everybody's mind around the league is at when you ask about Billy Donovan, you ask about the Chicago Bulls. They had back-to-back years of 39 wins. It looked like that they were kind of stepping in the right direction. And then all of a sudden, they fell off this year. They're going to be going through a complete roster overhaul outside of Josh Giddey and Matas Buzelis. They're going to have another mid-tier draft pick. It's not a great draft pick. It's not a bad draft pick. So they're just kind of stuck over the last 3 to 4 years in limbo. And it's up to Billy Donovan at this point, whether or not he sees a path forward with the Bulls. Does he want this to be his legacy? Because there's people telling him to just get out of Chicago because it's not doing anything for him. He was one of the best college coaches at Florida. He won back-to-back championships there. He was viewed as on the same level as Coach K, Jim Boeheim, Roy Williams, who was at UNC, Tom Izzo at Michigan State. He was in that same hierarchy, and then he goes to the NBA, and he's just had kind of mediocre success at times with the Oklahoma City Thunder, the 1 year that he had with the Bulls that he took them to the playoffs. So it's just kind of up to him. If he wants the UNC job, it is there for him. They want him as one of their top candidates along with Arizona's Tommy Lloyd. And so one of those guys, if they want the job, it's theirs to have.
I will say there's some context that needs to be mentioned with those jobs. He took over the Thunder job, I think, shortly before, just after KD left. I don't remember what that timeline was, but I think he only coached KD for like a year or two before he left, and he had to coach.
It was like
Russell
the
Westbrook.
Sabonis Schroeder teams.
Yeah. So he wasn't really coaching a contending team like that Russell Westbrook, KD teams. Like he wasn't coaching that kind of team. And then with Chicago, I mean, look, they've just been a mess. We've talked about them in the past about what really their plan is or what they're trying to do. We don't even know. They made trades for guards this year. They swapped out Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu and brought back Colin Sexton and Anthony Simons, and it's just a lot of confusion there. And so I don't blame Billy Donovan for any of those. I think he's done a pretty good job considering what he's been given to work with. I think we've seen under him guys like Matas Buzelis start to shine. We've seen Leonard Miller of late play better. And so I think guys have done the best they could. And Billy's done the best he could, but not really always placed in the best situations, I will say, that context. Just, I'm sure Florida, he had a different recruiting ability and different powers to make stuff happen. Whereas, with the Bulls, they're just, we see what they are. They've been mediocre for a while now. So
the one last thing, our friend Tony Jones over at The Athletic, he put together a piece about Billy Donovan in Philadelphia when the Bulls were playing the 76ers. He was asked about the UNC opening. He did not address it. He just simply said that his main focus is on the guys right now and this new team in Chicago. He said that he understands that there's stuff out there and he understands that there's going to be certain speculation, but he does not have to concentrate, but he has to concentrate on this group at hand. And that is basically what he left it as. So Tomer, that kind of tells me that there's something happening here.
Hilarious stuff. Shout out Tony. All right, moving on to our last topic of the day, and that is some NBA draft talk, some conversation on NBA draft. I know some of you guys have mentioned it in the chat. So let's talk about it. I mean, who are some guys who have stood out for you, Brett, early in this NBA, in the NCAA tournament? I mean, we've seen BYU exit early. We saw Florida get ousted early. I think there's another upset. I can't remember which one. But who's kind of stood out to you so far in this tournament?
Well, first off, we have to start with AJ DeBonta. I think that even though BYU lost in the first round, the numbers that he put up while playing the entire game is synonymous with what everybody's saying about him being the consensus number one pick. That was the biggest question entering this year of, is it going to be Cam Boozer? Is it going to be AJ DeBonta? Is it going to be Darren Peterson from Kansas? To me, I've been on AJ DeBonta for months. I'm ready to just shut this door. He is the number one pick. No matter what team I look at that could potentially get that top slot, AJ DeBonta is the clear-cut top talent in this draft and can help any of these 30 franchises right away. So I don't care who has that first pick. I would lean AJ DeBonsa there. Then obviously Darius Acuff. I think that he has made a big name for himself joining this top five discussion of the prospects that could be in the top five. And obviously, I think that he's right there with Darren Peterson of being the first guard taken off the board. He's been the leading scorer for guards almost all season. In the NCAA tournament through 2 games, he's put up 60 points while shooting roughly 55% from 3-point range. And so I think that Darius Acuff, there's concerns about his defense, but teams don't draft these guys for defense. They draft them for talent, and they try to develop them along the way. And yes, there's going to be some learning curves there. But again, Darius Acuff is only 19 years old. It will come in time. You cannot teach what he does offensively. You can teach him to be better on defense. So I think that those two guys have done a name for themselves. I think that they're absolutely top five picks in this year's draft. And then the one guy I do want to give a shout out before I pass it back to you, Tomer, is Terrace Reed Jr. from UConn. Not a lot of people know about him because Alex Karabin is their senior leader. You have Braylon Mullins there. But Terrace Reed has been absolutely fantastic. He's put up over 40 points and 40 rebounds through the first 2 games of this tournament. The only other people in NCAA history that have ever done that, you have Bill Walton with UCLA in 72, Hakeem Olajuwon with Houston in 83, and Tim Duncan in 97 with Wake Forest. He joined that list of guys to have 40 through 2 games of the NCAA tournament. That's quite the list, and I think that Terrace Reed is suddenly becoming a prospect that we need to talk about from being a late first round, early second round, to potentially being on the verge of the lottery.
So basically, he's a future Hall of Famer. That's who you named, a bunch of other Hall of Famers right there.
It's pretty elite company to be with.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm right there with you. I think AJ DeBonsa, even though they had only that 1 game, he's had a great freshman season. He had that great game. He did whatever he could to try and will BYU to a win there. Just they fell just short. I think Cam Boozer's been impressive. Darius Acuff, we talked about his scoring ability. His ability on the ball is just second to none. Might be the best on ball scorer right now. Just impressive stuff, top to bottom. I am curious to see. I know he got injured, but Caleb Wilson. I think there's a lot of just guys who I think he's projected to go top 4. I think that feels safe to say. But I am curious to see which team kind of takes a chance on him, given the injury, given that there's not a lot right now, no NCAA tournament experience, and want to see what teams go with him. It sounds like the top 4 really are set with DeBonta, Peterson, Boozer, and Wilson. But you mentioned Acuff. I'm curious to see if he can go 5, because it sounds like someone here is going to get a really good player at 5. With these 5 players we just named, usually it's top 3, top 4. There's potentially 5 or 6 really, really high level athletes in this draft. Do you think you agree with that? Do you think it's a 5 to 6?
I'm going to actually put it this way, Tommy. I think that AJ DeBonsa is obviously a lock to be 1 or 2 off the board. If he doesn't go first, I think that team is going to be kicking themselves for years to come. He is the clear-cut number 1 pick in this draft. And then obviously Caleb Wilson, I think if he didn't get hurt, there'd be discussions of him going number 2. I think that once teams get him in their building, and if he's able to participate in the pre-draft process, they're going to see that very quickly, because you can't teach 6'10", 6'11" with that type of wingspan and those type of athletic instincts in the open court. Just like AJ DeBonsa, you can't teach the skills that he has. So very rare. I think that there's even a chance that he could go number 2 in this draft. And guys like Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, I think that's just situational based. I think that there's teams that would look over Darren Peterson because they don't need that type of player, and they much rather have a Cam Boozer or a Darius Acuff, an electric scorer like him. And the same goes for Boozer. I think that his fit, even though he's a really good player, he's not going to fit every single team in this league. So I think that's where the difference lies for Boozer and Peterson compared to DeBonsa and Wilson for me. But yeah, those are obviously the 4 guys that are going to be on top of everybody's big board entering this draft. Until the lottery comes, though, and until we see what this order is going to be, it's kind of hard to say where Boozer and Peterson are going to end up.
Do you think Darren Peterson's comments the other day about dealing with mental health and anxiety affects his draft ranking or where he might go at all?
I don't think so at all. I think that teams and scouts have seen enough of him ever since he was in the high school circuit, AAU circuit, and they know what type of talent he is. They would like to see him play more this season, obviously. And I've had conversations with people that have brought up a little bit of yellow flags with some of these concerns. But again, there's 2-3 months until the NBA draft. There's a lot of time for them to bring him into the building, go through a workout, talk with them. And obviously, they'll get to see what type of person he is there. And I have no doubt that Darren Peterson is a top three talent in this draft. It's just a matter if he goes top three because of the teams that could potentially be picking there.
The bottom three teams have a 14% chance of landing the top three pick. The worst overall record in the league has a 48% chance to land either the fifth pick or a combined 51% for top four. So there's still a lot to play for here. And we've seen the teams that have the worst record do not get the number one overall pick in recent years. We saw San Antonio jump. We saw Dallas jump last year when they got Cooper Flag. So very curious to see how everything plays out here. And we have the Board of Governors meeting where I'm sure Adam Silver will announce changes, not for this lottery or this draft, but next year's draft, correct?
That is correct. They will be enacted for the 2026-2027 season.
That's our episode. Brett, anything you want to chime in? Anything you want to add in before we wrap up here?
Be a great weekend of basketball, Tomer, not just in the NBA.